Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here. You're probably tired of hearing about Baldur's Gate 3 by now, but I thought I would share my experiences as someone who wasn't initially interested in the game, as I am not a turn-based gaming guy. But I gave it a try, and hopefully after this 10-minute tribute, you may consider doing so as well. We'll look at the components of the game and cover some basics of playing so you can make an informed decision for yourself. I'll do my best to avoid any sort of major spoilers or giving anything interesting away, but enough chatter. Let's get on with it. Stick around. This game wasn't even on my radar. Now I think it's my contender for Game of the Year. It's an interesting mix of real-time exploration, detailed turn-based combat with incredible depth and interesting characters, all set in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons. When push comes to shove, I'm still a Witcher 3 guy in the story department. The story in Baldur's Gate 3 isn't particularly compelling, despite having plenty of books set in the universe. It is really hard to knock down the Grey Wolf's campaign through the Witcher world, though, and I don't hold the story against it. To avoid any potential spoilers, I'm going to leave the storyline out of things and stick to the components of the game. I may have to offer some high-level details to help understand what I'm showing you, but that's the best I could do. So what sort of game is Baldur's Gate 3? You probably know already, but let's cover it for those who have been living on a deserted island the last couple of months. Baldur's Gate 3 is what's known as a CRPG, or computer role-playing game. They are often based on existing IP from the tabletop gaming world, like Dungeons & Dragons, which Baldur's Gate 3 is part of. Typically, these games feature diverse mechanic, turn-based combat, focusing on parties of many players fighting multiple creatures. AAA versions of these games are rare as the audiences are smaller than those for the typical action RPG fare like Diablo. Fans are hungry for these titles, even if they are more scaled-back productions, of which BG3 most definitely is not. When you're not fighting, you're running around in what looks a lot like that typical ARPG fashion. Unlike those action-based titles, though, the CRPG focuses on exploration and searching. Sometimes things are obvious, like a treasure chest, but many times you won't find anything without searching areas more closely. So outside of combat, you have direct control over one character and the others follow you around as best they can, which is 99% successful most of the time. Sometimes they'll walk in lava or do something you wouldn't have done had you been controlling the character. Fortunately, you can split the team up and control them individually. A useful feature, and you will end up needing it once or twice in the game. This is a good time to talk about dice rolling. For those of you without D&D history, this may be confusing. Let's do a quick 101 on this. Dice decide the outcome of almost every decision in a tabletop game. When you enter a dangerous area or situation, dice are rolled to see if you detect something's wrong. These dice can be influenced, either improved or degraded, based on your player's status. If you're trying to open a locked chest, you will have a better chance with a higher dexterity or stealth stats. That sort of thing. Dice rolling is a neat mechanic, but when you're running around and there are traps, hidden doors, and tons of other stuff, stopping the player every 2 seconds to roll the dice 4 times, once per party member, to see if they notice a hidden lever, that would make a simple task unbearably complicated. Larian has really streamlined this while keeping the spirit alive. When in ARPG mode, all dice rolls are done automatically in the background, and the results are seen by the player as toasts or on-screen indicators. Very cool. Saving throws while in combat are done this way as well. It really keeps things flowing. During the game, you'll be conducting discussions with NPCs and your own party. During these interactions, dice rolls are used to determine the outcome. Sometimes you'll be interacting with the environment, pulling a sword out of a stone, disarming a trap, unlocking a door. This is when you get to manually roll the dice. It happens enough to keep the dice mechanic alive, but not so much where you feel like you're laboring instead of playing. And you get to see all the stats that are affecting that dice roll as well. Here's a really big win for Baldur's Gate 3. The game plays with either the keyboard or the mouse, or with a controller. Truth be told, controllers rarely get any love in these types of games, which makes sense because there's so much going on and there's so much to interact with in the game. Larian Studios went so far above and beyond building and controller support, it makes me giddy. Obviously, this game is coming to console, so they had no choice, but to have it on PC and so well thought out, a true rare gem. Of course, using the keyboard and mouse offers not only a different interface completely, but also allows you to do management of your inventory in a slick and easy manner. I find when I'm playing on PC, I flip back and forth, the controller for most play, with the mouse for heavy lifting inventory type management. Let's talk about the combat sequences, since this is what's going to probably make or break the game, in my opinion. You've probably asked yourself, is it too complicated for me? There are too many options. I don't think I can handle all that choice paralysis. Or maybe you've thought, damn, that looks really hard. If you're old school with these turn-based strategy type games, you're probably right at home here. If you're not, man, the first few game sessions are going to be rough on you. They sure were for me. In fact, I was dying and losing and reloading so often, I almost gave up on the game completely. Now this issue is several-fold. You'll start off as level 1 characters, which are super puny. You'll have to rely on mechanical advantages like throwing grease bottles, shooting down overhead braziers, exploding barrels next to your enemy, at least until your spellcasters get some decent spells, you've accumulated some better weapons and armor, and you've gained some experience, which can be had by watching how your enemies attack and mimicking them. Also, this game doesn't really have any grinding mechanic, so if you face a set of enemies you can't beat yet, you can't just go into the forest, find a bunch of wolves, kill them, and level up. You'll find other encounters instead that feature enemies also too powerful for you instead. There are opportunities, but you're going to feel underpowered until you reach like level 4 or 5, when you feel you can start using your player's actual skills instead of a bunch of tricks and nonsense. This can be very discouraging, but consider it a retraining opportunity and something else to overcome. Apply strategy instead of brute force. Some people will persevere and get through this early time. Others will bag the game and go back to Diablo. Hard to know which one you are until you try it out. Now we're almost out of time here, so I'll tell you a few other things I like. Exploring in large world games is important to me. I like uncovering a map slowly, finding goodies hidden where the developer thought you would never look. BG3 doesn't disappoint there. I like some control over the story using branching behavior. Can you avoid a fight? Can you talk a group into helping you instead? BG3 has this, but so far I haven't seen it change more than in a minor outcome. The game's ending is not going to be decided based on whether you sided with the paladins or devil during one mission. Maybe it does. I haven't got to the ending yet. But much like Witcher 3, some decisions will affect your outcome with other NPCs and those within your party. Some will just up and leave your group based on your personal politics. Others might try to kill you in your sleep. Just remember to save a lot. The last mechanic I want to discuss, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Resting in RPGs has always been critical. Rejuvenate hit points, regain all your cast spells, manage inventory, and perform other basic party maintenance. In BG3, there are two types of rest. A short rest that recovers some hit points and lower level spells. You get 2 of these per day before a long rest is required. The long rest takes you to a camp where you handle your team maintenance needs. This is also where you build relationships with your other players and get information from them that they may be holding on to. Short rests are instantaneous, while long rests are a pause. It is worth noting that time doesn't pass in this game. The only way to end a day is to do that long rest and sleep in your camp. The first day could be many hours of play. Long rests consume camp supplies, which appear to be in quite good quantity. I've never run out, but I don't do long rests very often. Larian really did a top-notch job on balancing resting with the other mechanics. Like so much else in this game, it is just handled well. You'll have to decide what sort of player you are, but do save often regardless. You can get sucked into this game, and an hour or 2 passes and you forgot to save. Then some tragedy like blowing your whole party up by accidentally igniting a barrel in a room full of barrels happens, and you're out of 2 hours of your game. As someone that wasn't even interested in the game to being helplessly addicted to playing it, all I can tell you is that sometimes a game is the sum of its parts, and while you may dismiss turn-based gaming as not for you, hopefully this video gives you some alternative looks on the genre. Sometimes it's all about the IP. I couldn't play a game like this with Mario and Luigi, but in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons with eyeballs, spectators, and Tiamat references, count me in. For some, the game will be overly complicated and maybe too engrossing. Fortunately, there's plenty to love in this game. If you've been sitting on the sidelines trying to decide if you wanted to jump in, I hope this video helped you out one way or the other. And if you like what you saw, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course leave that comment. Tell my viewers what you loved or hated about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.